You guys remember Callisto Protocol? The most dead game imaginable? Dead Space creator executives destroyed our $150 million game.
So you know those times where it really looks like a game should be good, but then it comes out and it very much isn't. That's been every game in the past 5 years. What happened to the Callisto Protocol? Like, in many ways, that thing looked impressive, but it basically didn't really feel like a finished game.
The Callisto Protocol failed because they had the worst crunch times humanly imaginable. Like, most video game companies have crunch times, but they released that game like 3 to 6 months earlier than it should have been released.
Funnily enough, that might actually be because it wasn't a finished game. And if true, executive meddling directly murdered it. Now, the game came out in 2022. It had a muted reception.
That game came out 2 years ago. It feels like it came out 6 months ago. Can someone slow down like the clock in Majora's Mask or something, bro? Like, goddamn.
It had, I would say, relatively low sales, especially compared to what the execs actually wanted. The run-up to launch was a little bit suspicious. I mean, you had the director talking.
Only talk about the game during an event. We work 6 to 7 days a week. Nobody's forcing us. Exhaustion, tired, COVID, but we're working. Bugs, glitches, perf fixes. One last pass-through audio, 12, 15-hour days. This is game. I'm crunching my staff. This is gaming. Hard work, lunch, dinner working. You do it because you love it.
About crunch, which is never a good sign because it usually means that something has not went to plan. When the game came out, well, what we basically had was technical problems, design issues, and it just didn't land in the way that the studio Striking Distance intended. Now, though, things get a little bit fun because we get to ask the question, what if it had came out when it was actually meant to? What if it came out in the way that the developer actually intended? Yeah, this is a weird story.
You remember the vent crawling through that game? I swear there was one part in the game where you crawled through a vent for like 5 minutes and then you immediately were greeted by another vent.
And I'm going to ask you for just 15 seconds. If you're new around here, we've had loads of new viewers lately. Could you please give the subscribe button a click? And the reason I say that's really simple. It gives YouTube a positive signal. You know how the algorithm works, right? And that helps get our videos out to more people. And that means that I'm able to gather more of the resources that I need to make the show better. So that's very much the goal with that.
It was 10% game and 90% vents. Nah, it's weird because they dropped the vents after the first act. But the first act was actually 90% vents because they had no idea how to do stealth.
Said Callisto Protocol. Now, I want you to keep something in mind here. Callisto Protocol came out on the 2nd of December 2022. Now, that's a really weird release date, and it's certainly...
Okay, that's not 2 years. That's like a year and 8 months. That's still very scary, though, that it's nearly 2 years.
Certainly one that American companies within the games industry try not to do. It's generally too late. It's too close to Christmas. It's competing with loads of other consumer spending. It's a little weird when a AAA game, I mean, certainly one with a budget like this one, comes out at that time. Do keep that in mind because it's going to be relevant soon. Now, what's happened is an interview with Glenn Schofield from Dan Allen Games.
Damn, Glenn looks so much older. I just remember seeing him in like interviews from Dead Space, which is obviously like nearly 20 years ago.
And this is revealed that after a really great start,
well, over 10 years ago,
the relationship between Krafton and Striking Distance became adversarial and demanding, and ultimately that is what kind of ruined things for the game. The most important and almost certainly the most damaging thing is the release date was promised at one point to be in 2023, but was then moved up by 3.5 months. So can you imagine working on a project that's scoped to like a year and a half or a year and just losing?
Did anyone know, by the way, that the game got DLC and it made the game worse? Did anyone hear about that? Because no one played it. Do you remember how the main game ended on a cliffhanger? Well, what actually happened is afterwards, after the cliffhanger, they didn't sequel bait. The game kept going as a DLC. And then in the DLC, you find out that none of it happened and it was all in the head and the guy died in the final act of the game. It was actually all in the head. Like, I'm not even joking.
3.5.
Do you want me to show you? Let me show you. Like this is actually, you actually find out that it's all in the head. You play through this mid game only to find out that you basically died. See, I think there's like a boss you fight here. It's like the doctor who saved you in the base game, and then you basically, oh yeah, that's right. You go to like your ship.
Are you with me?
Dead Space. Dead Space moment. Dead Space moment. Yeah, and then it's like, you know, he's like, oh, I escaped the planet. Oh my god, oh my god. And then you find out that you've basically been dead all along.
Him here. His link to Danny's core still active.
Like, no good ending.
It's out there.
No good ending, by the way. The doctor woman escapes, I think. But you're basically dead. Yeah, there you go. Like, entire face melted off. Oh. Oh, wait. Does she die as well? Oh, yeah. She dies as well. Great. Great game. Great game. Imagine, like, being the 5 people that were waiting on the DLC to clutch it, and then it's just all in their head. Like, actually so disappointing.
Half months. That is absolutely goddamn.
Cry of Fear moment? No, because Cry of Fear had an actual ending. Cry of Fear was, like, the best ending. You gunned down the cops and you went to a mental health hospital, but, like, at least you got a life. Like, you were being cared for and stuff. Like, it's not a happy, good ending, but at least, like, there was an intervention. And Sophie wasn't killed, or his doctor wasn't killed.
I'm insane. So
that was literally just like being bitter for the sake of it.
Here's the quote. It actually was in October or September of 2021. I was told, quote, "You're going to get the time, just no regrets." That was the term that kept being used. No regrets, just put whatever you want into the game. And so that ends up being the plan for the next while. Glenn goes on to say that he just worked on that over his Christmas vacation, that he was designing, coming up with other ideas and things like
They knew nobody was getting a sequel, so they just killed the characters off. It wouldn't surprise me.
that. But then, well, what happens is he comes back to work in January and Krafton basically said,
Did you know Dogpack dropped a new video? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, the Mr. Beast manager one, right?
Hey, no, actually, you're not releasing in 2023. You are releasing in December of 2022. And that means that in January 2022, Callisto Protocol went from having 15 and a half months of development left to only having 12 months. That's basically losing 20% of the planned development time. We've all played games that feel 80% done. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that happens.
Oh my god, do you know what I remember as well? Do you remember when I played it on stream and how unoptimized the game was? Like, I'm running on a 4090, right? Like, that is basically the best graphics card on the market right now, or one of the best. I couldn't run the game unless it was on low settings, and even then it was like 30 FPS. Oh my god, I remember that. Yeah, that ruined the experience for me. Because the game actually looks good, right? Like, the character models and that are actually sick. They look really good. They're scans of people, but they've been animated enough to not go in that uncanny valley.
Happens. Anyway, what Schofield says, though, is this isn't a case where you can just remove time from the equation and end up with the same result. You've got to balance things out. Like, to risk oversimplifying things, it's the core principle that if, say, one dressmaker will make you a dress in 9 weeks, but if that's to say you want the dress in 1 week, maybe you're going to need 9 dressmakers. Just that, of course, in reality, it's worse than that, because while, yes, you may need 9 dressmakers, perhaps you'll also need, I don't know, 2 managers, HR, and all the other things to support that team, the layers of management. So it's one of those challenging things. If you want something to happen in a compressed space of time, you are going to need a larger team. But the larger your team gets, the less efficient it ends up being, the more that you risk things like talent dilution, and the more that you then need to bake in inefficiencies in the form of process to actually get things working, because, yeah, scale is basically inherently a nightmare.
I like how that zombie hooked onto him like Batman throwing a punch in the Arkham games.
So, with all of this in mind, Glenn tells Krafton that they're not going to save any money from this delay because he's just going to need 30 to 40 more people to actually make the new timeline work. But basically, Krafton just pressed on because this was actually not about saving money for them. We'll get on to why later, and of course you've also got to remember this is all 2021, and things are going on in 2021 that maybe would have reduced team efficiency. So what ended up happening is they were getting cut to pieces and they weren't getting support from Krafton. What Glenn says is this: you have a studio of 200 to 250 people, 10 to 20 people a month were getting sick, and they were getting sick for weeks, right? We were devastated. Sometimes our whole department of visual effects would be out, our animation department, you know? And when he basically says that he'd call Korea about these sorts of things, it just wasn't really taken
How dare people get sick on my payroll?
seriously. So that's quite rough. Now, of course,
Do you know who I am? I worked on Dead Space.
there was another big change in 2021 in the games industry. The change that, of course, has resulted, or at least partially resulted, in nearly 12,000 layoffs in just this 1 year. And that is that games...
Holy. That's actually... Oh my god. 12k layoffs, bro. Gaming. This is why indie gaming is picking up so much steam now, though. Like, damn.
looked like an amazing investment opportunity during the pandemic. People were locked up at home. Way more video games were being played.
I think the problem we have now as well, there's too many games, if that makes sense. It's like, I swear, when I was growing up, there was like 2 good games a year. Like 2. You'd get like a game on Christmas, like COD or something. And then you'd get like a game in mid-May. But now it's like, there's like 12 big games coming out a year. There's so many coming out, so many AAA games, and most of them just like flop.
And that just
like, I'm not even talking about indie games because that goes into like the quadruple digits. I'm not even talking about them.
to
There's too many games, but there's no good ones. There's no games. No. Okay, so when I say no games, I mean when I don't like the look of a game, I do not classify it as a game. Therefore, no games. That's the math equation. Okay, that's the big equation. I want to be like Thor, like Pirate Software, pull up a little box, start drawing ferrets in there. But like no games. If it's not a good game, there is not a game. It takes the game away, so it becomes no game. So, game announced, not good, no game. I hope that's easy to understand.
Surging revenues and a little bit of a speculative bubble being popped up. So what would happen is loads of these companies would become flush with cash and they would start offering real absurd salaries.
There is a lot of games that come out every year. I don't think people realize how many games come out. But because they're not good games, it's not a game.
Like really big ones. Glenn quoted 110 grand while working.
Like, you know what the worst thing is? Like, the only game I'm actually excited to come out for now. Look at this. Look. This is the only game I care about. They announced a remaster for Croc on the PlayStation 1. Because I grew up playing this game. I couldn't play it because it was too hard. It was actually way too hard. But they're actually doing a remaster of this game, like updated graphics and stuff like that. It was like a platformer, but it was a really hard platformer because it had tank controls and stuff. But they're doing Killer Bean. Okay, that could be a game. Like, look how basic this game looks. I'm still hyped for it though because I played it as a kid. Like I've been fully nostalgia baited. This game was really hard, by the way. But yeah, I don't know when it comes out. They haven't announced a date and they haven't announced what platform it comes out on. If it's just the Switch, someone's getting touched at Argonaut. I like how that company disappeared for 20 years and then they're like, oh yeah, let's bring out a game. Yeah, pre-release footage. That's it. There's no date. There's nothing. That could be years away. Hopefully not. But yeah.
From home. Now, the problem that this would have...
Do you not have a Switch? I do. I just don't use it.
...posed for someone like Striking Distance is, well, they're a smaller team with less clout. That ends
Krafton is also the publisher that acquired Hi-Fi Rush. Okay.
That being a really big challenge because you got to remember, it's not only the big companies, you know, poaching staff off.
What about Benny Hill? Are you not excited for that? So, Quiet Mountain 2. I swear, that's actually going to follow me. Quiet Mountain. Quiet Mountain 2. Quiet Mountain 2. Oh my god.
Off each other. It's also there being like a lot of startups that are getting a lot of investment. I mean, as an example, and this is definitely one of the higher up ones, but I actually heard of Senior Animation. Somebody based...
Quiet Mountain is actually the most snide remark you could ever make to an E-celeb mispronouncing a character's name.
Basically losing a prospect to that because they were given an offer that was like well north of 300 grand. So that's challenging, and Glenn says that they had 49 people quit because of this in 2021, and it's what Glenn anyway calls the Great Resignation. So all of this was going on. I think you can imagine it's not great. They've lost months of their schedule. Their team keeps on, having sickness and that kind of thing. And they're also having loads of people quit. And that's all in an environment where hiring is really hard because there's a lot of money just around the system. Yet through all that, they were able to hit their deadline on the 2nd of December. And, well, it really does suck. Why? Basically, they cut 2.5 bosses from the game.
Have you seen Boston Dynamics' newest humanoid robot? Seeing the future of humanity stand up and walk towards the camera is scary as fuck.
I haven't seen that. Let's have a look. Is that the Nostalgia Critic? No. Oh, what's this? Oh, is it? Ooh. Ooh, le spooky horror game? Subliminal. So it's not that game Superliminal that came out, right? But it's a horror game. Thank you, GLaDOS, for the 3. No, it's like that game Pools. Remember Pools?
Viewer discretion is advised.
The following video contains content harmful to human minds. Symptoms of exposure may include erosion of sanity and memory loss. We recommend those with a weak sense of relief of self to avoid watching this video. If you choose to proceed, please ensure you're in a safe environment. Get this man some Ritalin. Look, man, it's YouTube recommended. I don't pick it.
Hello and welcome. I'll be your guide today as you venture back into your past.
Okay, that's the same narrator that was in Superliminal. So I think they're actually just turning it into a horror game now.
And relive some of your most treasured and sacred core memories.
Do you remember in Superliminal they did have like brief horror segments, but it wasn't really scary. It was like a mannequin that would appear as a shadow. Like it was basically nothing.
As you embark on your
and there was like a bloodied door or something.
Experience, please try your best not to get distracted and let your mind wander off. As doing so can be dangerous and introduce unconscious.
That's the guy from Superliminal. Yeah, that's what I just said.
Unregulated and suppressed.
They're gonna do like back rooms. In-game footage. Fix that FOV, young man. Look at that FOV. Turn off that motion blur, young man. Okay, it's
I see you've made it to the waterworks. Please, don't be shy.
It's definitely a horror game.
A few of those whirling water slides you loved so much.
It's definitely a horror game. Look how that look. That looks sick, though.
No.
It actually looks like, with the motion blur, it looks like a pre-generated trailer, right? It doesn't look real. Especially with the movement as well, the movement. Oh, that scared me. Garner Ban. Yeah, it's like a HD texture mob. Wait, I remember this area in Security Breach. Where are the generators? It feels fake. I don't think they'd be able to claim it's gameplay without saying that. Like if they said in-engine, you know the cope, the in-engine cope, but they said actual gameplay. It could be real. It could be real. I mean, look at that game like Body Cam. Like Body Cam did not look like a real game until you played it. And then because of the camera motion and stuff, it's like, oh, that's how it works. It's probably similar. Unrecord? Yeah, that as well. It's just interesting that it's going to be a horror game for a change. Because yeah, I was always thinking when I was playing Superliminal, like it's very lighthearted. Where's the scary stuff? This will be on a different engine as well, I think. I think Superliminal was on the Source engine, I think. Oh, the tree looked at me. Oh. The tree. He's right behind me, isn't he? I'm still gonna get scared anyway. Okay, I'm not pre-watching. Thank you, Kel, for the 5 months. Is that a frog? Toad! It's gonna be right in front of him. Look at that camera movement though, man. That shakiness is even more aggressive than like body cam. They just recreate the Monty fight in Security Breach with shooting the little gun. Well, that looks cool. Jump scare. Releasing on when? Christmas? Jingle bells. Okay, so it's coming out on Christmas. It's got a horror game coming out on Christmas.
Hey Pyro.
Yeah, officially releasing on December.
I have some fan art I made, and some I am currently working on. What's the best way to send you fan art?
Thank you, Gemlin, for the 10. You can post it on the subreddit. You could post it on the... We got an art channel on the Discord server, as long as it isn't NSFW. I think that's pretty much it.
Three or four different enemy types as well, and they were...
Dude, I don't even know what I was looking for. What was I looking for? I got so distracted by watching that video, I don't even know what I was looking for originally. That's crazy.
doing all of this while they were...
Does anyone know what I was looking for? Drop my cap. Oh, there it is. Oh, the Boston Dynamics robot. Okay, yeah, nice one. Yeah, I forgot. They've got their own channel, haven't they? Is this it? Or is this it? Well, that's got copyright music. I can't play that. Yo. That is... Damn. That's... It's actually insane. You know what they need to do? Okay, hear me out. They need to have, like... Could you imagine if, like, The Last of Us... You know The Last of Us, when you went through Boston? Could you imagine if you had to go through the Boston Dynamics lab and there was a bunch of robots that went, like, rogue or something? Okay, okay, Neil Druckmann, hire me right now. I could have fixed that game. Easy clap. Oh my god, they're teaching it Fortnite dances. Wrong video. It's the most recent video on their channel. The video the guy was talking about is not that, by the way. What video are you talking about then? That's the most recent video. What's the video called? It's the all-new Atlas. Oh my god. Oh my god. That is crazy. The fact it can fully twist as well. Oh my god. Clank, 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 clank. V1, clank, 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 clank. Oh my god, that's crazy.
Trying to finish the game on time. And that meant that they had to cut things for the sake of speed, but they weren't really able to make the design fully work, as it was, of course, intended at the start of 2022. And that was very much spoken for in the reviews, where yes, there is performance issues.
Someone said make it a woman.
Stuff like that we're maybe a bit more used to, but then just design decisions that felt odd. Things that felt just really half-baked, not really that well conceived. And it turns out that by the end of 2021, all of these things were probably quite well conceived. Problem, of course, was
42% critics recommend. Damn. IGN gave it a 7. I don't... What would I give it? I don't know. Who asked? Shut up, Pyro. I don't know what I'd give it. I feel a 7's too high, but a 6 is too low. Do you know what I mean? I feel like... You know how game reviews work, where it's like anything that's less than an 8 is garbage, you know, like, because there's so many games released and they give game scores way too high, so the choke point for what is a good game and a bad game has got more and more narrow. Like, I've watched films that are 6 out of 10 on IMDb, and I still really enjoy them. Like, there's a film that Guy Ritchie did. It's, like, apparently one of his worst films, called Revolver. It came out in 2005. I think that's a good film.
Obviously loaded question, but honestly, do you think that you have a positive impact on society? Not by streamer standards, and how about the streaming business as a whole?
Thank you, Nico, for the 10. Have I had a positive impact on society? Anyways, thank you for the 10.
they lost time and they had loads of issues. They ended up on OpenCritic having a 67 average and a 42% recommendation, which is obviously not great. Some stuff was then chalked up to just sort of, the DLC will come in and make a lot of things better, and that just didn't really happen. Now, the first signs of all this that we got was crunch. Basically, they crunched it, and Glenn basically said that he was proud of the team. That's one of those things where I do understand how, at the time...
I'm proud of the team. Only 5 people had a mental breakdown this week.
Right? You basically have Glenn being like, yep, we have had to do so much crunch to make this happen, and I'm really proud of the team. And then people are basically saying, well, that's probably bad. You've probably burnt out all your staff. Why are you proud that you managed your game poorly, that you managed your schedule poorly and burned everybody out? That seemingly is silly. And of course, he will then say, well, here's all of this context, which we can now talk about today. I mean, as an example at the time, this is what Jason Schreier tweeted in response. This, from a studio head, is crunch culture defined. Of course, nobody is forced to work insane hours, but imagine the reduced bonuses and lack of promotion opportunities if you don't. You do it because you love it. Weaponized passion, this is why people burn out of gaming. You can totally understand what he's saying there. The challenge here, though, is, well, the context maybe changes things. You can totally understand why Schofield would be proud, right? Like, you can get Jason's logic, yes, but the reason why Schofield is proud is probably because he knows they have been dealt a stupidly shit hand.
What did Schofield actually do on Dead Space? He was an art director, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure. Let's have a look.
Glenn, pleasure to have you on, mate. Thanks for joining us. How have you been? I mean, some of the art you've been cranking out the last few months.
What did he do? Right, he was a creator and director of Dead Space. Okay. Okay, so he had a lot more pull than I thought he did. I thought he was someone on the art team or something. But no, he was actually heading Dead Space. But I assume he just wanted to get away from EA.
And it's basically a miracle that they ended up shipping the game, so he's going to be proud at how the team were able to come together. Even though, of course, yes, they'll have been burning the candle at both ends, almost certainly to the point of creating, burnout and all of those bad things that end up just undermining the long-term viability of a studio. So it's really a case of striking distance, being under insane pressure from Krafton, and
there's one guy that's been spamming 7 times Pyro mention in Sunny V2 video. Oh, what's the video? Is there finally a downfall on Pyrocynical? How Chandler went from janitor to internet legend. Is there a mention of me in there? I'm just looking for where my Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is!
Did he leave Mr. Beast or not? Which is being repeated in many viral videos. Chandler quitting Mr. Beast? Where is Chandler from Mr. Beast?
Oh, we made it into a Sunny video. We made it into a Sunny video. Oh, inshallah, my brothers, inshallah, we made it. We made it. Oh. Oh, thank God. Also, Dylan Page, you got a YouTube channel? Mate, you get enough off TikTok. Go away. You have enough money, mate. Yeah, I didn't know you had a YouTube channel as well. Oh my God, content Andy. Damn. I respect it.
And them just being, backs up against the wall and being forced to deliver. And of course, they had to deliver because if they didn't, they would lose their jobs. Hence the crunch happening. Now, some people will relish the challenge. And I know, in terms of personality type, I would generally...
It is crazy to think how Glenn thought that Callisto Protocol was going to do well. Because, all he did was take Dead Space, recreate the exact same thing, change a couple of things, and add nothing. There was still the dismemberment aspect. You get headshot. All he basically did is make it less about weapons and more about melee combat. But it's not like you could target... If you could have targeted limbs, like, for example, Raiden could have in Metal Gear... that would have been cool. Specific targeting. You can actually choose. I remember Dead Island had an option like that. You could change it so your character could, make specific swings. Almost like kind of a Kingdom Come thing.
challenge.
Like, if that was in the game, that'd be pretty cool.
And I know, like, in terms of personality type, I would generally be one
He added vents. Okay, that's not very nice. Come on.
of those. Like, if you say to me, okay, this
Have you seen the new dog pack video? No.
this is going to be shit, but welcome to 3 months of hell, there is a large part of me that will think, hell yeah, let's do this. The problem, though, is that is not always wise, and you end up just kind of hurting yourself in the process, so there's always a balance. And it's fair to say that I'd probably find that to be quite easy to do, because, like, this is the channel that I've built. And one of the follow-ups from Jason actually is quite strong, where he basically says it's easy to mistake obligation for enthusiasm when you happen to be the guy who controls all their salaries, titles, and current employment status. So you can definitely see Schreier's point. It does seem scathing, it also does
Hello, my
seem fair, but if you think
succulent
about it
furry
from the
man.
perspective
What are your
of, like,
thoughts on
Schofield and
Insomnia
Striking
going
Distance,
bust?
well, they...
How are we going to see you in person now? At least we won't have to travel to Birmingham ever again. Much love, brother. Big fan, less than 3.
Thank you more for the 10. What's going to happen after Insomnia? I don't know. I do want to do more conventions. I'm going to look at doing one in Germany, and I'm going to look at doing one. I'm doing PAX this year. Definitely doing PAX this year. Yeah. That should be cool. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only other event I could think of that would fit me is Comic-Con. I know that there's an event called Summer in the City, but I think that's mostly for, like, all the TikTok people and stuff like that. So I don't really think that'd fit my category. I don't know. I really couldn't tell you, to be fair.
Literally had no choice because of the pressures that they were getting from Krafton. So you then end up in a situation that's all about pragmatism. That basically is your limitation, perhaps.
Didn't Insomnia fill off? It shut down. It shut down. It's not coming back. It's done completely.
You're not going to get more staff. You're not going to get more time. You basically have to ship with what you've got. So that could just be a case where working in a normal, healthy, sustainable way is actually not going to work, which of course can then mean that it's an unsustainable thing, because if you sustainably fail to ship a project on time, then yes, while you may have worked sustainably, the broader situation is not sustainable, therefore it goes to zero, you lose your job. Once again, Catch-22 is a great book. So when you have a high pressure situation like that, some personality types, I'm probably one of them, will just say, all right, fuck it, this is going to be gnarly, but let's go. The thing is, if you do that too much, you can end up just doing yourself a bit of brain damage. And as Jason...
I mean, even this little scene of him going down the sewage, it's the equivalent of, like, when you were outside in 0G chasing the trailer that was moving in Dead Space 3.
Schreier did point out as well, it can be very easy to mistake obligation for enthusiasm when...
I'll be honest, even if they had more time, I just don't think it could have been a good game. I really don't. I really don't. I just don't think it was different enough from the originals.
You know, in the case of Glenn, you're...
And then obviously when people heard that, like, Dead Space was... Because I remember Dead Space Remaster was announced before the Callisto Protocol actually came out, like it was over.
The guy who's controlling people's salaries, titles, employment status, and all of that. Not that much of that ended up mattering, because they did in fact lose their jobs. After the game came out and only sold 2 million copies rather than the 5 million crap.
2 million is good, though. 2 million is, like, from a pretty new studio, that's not bad. But yeah, asking to sell 5 mil is crazy. Like, 5 mil, you'd never reach that. 2 mil is a good number. That's not a bad number. To be fair, I bet you there were so many refunds, though, because, like, you know, streamers just attacking the game when it first came out. I know I did.
Krafton was allegedly expecting 32 staff from the...
Dead Space Remake was good. It was alright. It was, you know, I don't really... I think it's forgettable, though, the Dead Space remake, because I was going to do a video on it, but then I was like, when I finished it, I was like, I actually kind of don't care anymore. I kind of lost interest. So I know a lot of people attacked the fact that Isaac was fully voiced now. I didn't mind it because he was still voiced by the same guy who voiced him in 2 and 3. So I was like, okay, that's sick. They got him back. They changed Isaac's face as well. Yeah, in Dead Space, hang on. Yeah, so Isaac looks like... Yeah, that's right. He looks like that in Dead Space 1, 2, and 3. And then he looks like that. Because what they did is, they basically changed him, so he just looks like... he looks like his actor, his voice actor. That's all they did. Like, people found him, like, they were like, oh, why does he look like that now, bro? He looks terrible. But they just changed him to look like the actor. He doesn't look anywhere similar to this guy, though. They completely changed him.
around 200 were let go, and then only a few months later, Striking Distance's CFO, COO, and CEO, that's Glenn, they all left of their own accord, which does mean that the studio now is just doing things for Krafton, but
they cleaned him up. He doesn't even look similar, I don't think.
Actual, you know, the management.
There's people that voice characters in video games, unless it's like specifically mocapped, they usually never look how their voice actor looks. I mean, look at Abby from The Last of Us, right? She's like 3 different actors. It's like a voice actor, a body model, and then a face model. Like actually 3 actors for one person.
They basically all just left. So you're probably looking at all this and thinking, my God, why did any...
But a game like this, for example, they would have had the same people do the mocap that did the voices, because that's Kamiko, I think, from The Boys, the Asian girl.
If this happened, like, why did Krafton go so insane and pull the release forward by 3.5 months? Well, per Schofield, Krafton went public in August 2021, and that basically changed motivations. He says, we went public and it put an awful strain on the company, on the board of directors.
They literally pulled the game forward because it went public and they wanted more people to invest. I actually thought they did it out of anxiety of the Dead Space remake.
And everyone else. And then
that's probably one of the reasons, though, let's be real. They pulled it. They forced the game forward early to beat Dead Space.
As in Krafton, put the strain on us, probably. Now, this is, of course, you know, stuff that is all obviously terrible in hindsight, but you can probably piece together how it happens. I mean, they go public, and then Krafton's leadership starts to become strained by needing to show shareholders that they're actually making money, that they are getting results now, especially at the end of their first full financial year as a publicly traded company. And perhaps that then led to pressures on Schofield as the leader of Striking Distance that maybe led to cutting the timeline to make sure the Callisto Protocol's launch sales would count for fiscal year 2022, and allegedly they were expecting 5 million sales. So if their plan had have worked...
Yeah, 5 million is crazy. I don't know free-to-play games that get 5 million. Like, that's too much.
Maybe
that's
things
too
would have
much.
been fantastic. But of course, their plan was stupid and self-defeating. Now, if you're in America or the UK or many other countries, you might be thinking, but you're talking about the calendar year, not the fiscal year. No, not in Korea. Krafton's a Korean company, and the Korean fiscal year ends December 31st. So, remember the date and the framing that I gave to you earlier?
I never understood that. That threw me off so much with taxes. Okay, this is boomer talk, but like the fact that the fiscal year is different to the end of the year for taxes, that's so confusing.
In February or March would have been fine for many other companies, but Krafton wanted results in that fiscal year, and that is why it had to come out in December. Basically, money in December was more...
You know, the funny thing is, this title, he titles it like he worked at the company, but it just reads like one of the Nooks titles. Executives destroyed our $150 million game. Our game, my game.
Important to them than a better game in April, and that just all, of course, spiraled downhill and ended up killing this game. It is one...
I'll keep spamming about arsenate till pyrocynical because I don't have the money. Yeah, you posted that like 9 times. I don't know what arsenate is.
Sweet decision made for short-term reasons that hurt...
I thought he worked on the game. Does he? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He hasn't actually said that at any point. He's just talking about, like... He might have. No, I don't think he was a dev. No, I don't think so.
Everybody involved, of course, including and perhaps especially the C-suite. And I think that's the angle that almost makes it the most depressing. Like, you could understand if they did all of these mercenary decisions and somehow the system rewarded them, but...
Fiscal year had to be at least a few months away from Christmas.
No, actually, the devs get screwed over.
The title's a quote.
We get screwed over, all so that they can screw themselves over by just being incompetent and making bad decisions. That's why it's so pointless and frustrating. Ultimately, one of the last things that Dan Allen asked is, if Schofield was to do something different, what would it be? And Schofield said, one thing, put my foot down, I'm not shipping. Yeah, if you want a game to ship, then you can come take over the studio and ship it. Sometimes you don't know who you are, you know? And 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, well, who am I to tell these guys I'm not going to ship the game? And in hindsight, he feels like he just should have said no.
I don't feel like he's a bad person. I really don't. I feel like he just tried to recreate Dead Space because obviously EA just have complete control over it now. He tried to do his own thing. It just didn't work.
That's the situation. Schofield felt like he couldn't say no, and I
feel really bad for him because usually, like, if you make a game and it flops, that follows you like a curse, like forever. It's like, oh, but he made that game. It's like Peter Molyneux, right? Like people make, like I made fun of Peter Molyneux, but to be fair, Peter Molyneux has done that a lot. It's not like he's just had like one bad game.
I'm sure a few of it.
And Peter Molyneux would also overpromise into the heavens as well.
Staff, when it came to all the crunch, also felt like they couldn't say no because they probably realized the context.
Is Cringewood coming out on Sunday? Just early September, that's all I can say. After the stream, actually, I am going to go over more of the footage. We're very close though. We're like 90%
in, and all of that because Craft-On just decided to hurt itself. So thanks, Craft-On, you morons, you really screwed up that one. And that's really it for this video. If you'd like to see more from the channel, please do.
Yep. Company le bad. Never make a company public right before a game goes out because you think it's going to work. The pussification of video games. There's so many videos like that, man. There's so many videos like that.